Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome to today's session on the hidden key of ESO success in Africa. And this is the mid-level management. So we'll be diving deep into this topic. And I'm your moderator of the day. My name is Brenda Wangari, Program Manager Africa at Village Capital. So Village Capital is the most active supporter of impact-driven seed-stage entrepreneurs in the world. And we've been going on now for 11 years globally. And in our Africa practice, we've been active for 9 years. So what we do is revamp the system to back entrepreneurs of the future. And this is a future where business creates equity and long-term prosperity. And so how do we do this? This is, so we are well known for our peer selection methodology, which I think some of the people on the call might be familiar with, where we enable a group of peers to choose who gets investment. And the reason we do this is because we believe the wisdom is very much in the room, and that the people with lived experience and are also very close to the problem are best suited to select who gets funding. And we take a system levels approach to this, and where we work with three critical stakeholders. So one of the, so we work with entrepreneurs directly, and then we also work with locally led entrepreneur support organizations to unlock pipeline. And this is through programs such as the NextGen program, which we'll be talking about today. And entrepreneur support organizations, or otherwise known as ESOs, these organizations providing ideation, incubation, investment, acceleration. We also have business advisory services and consulting services. So these are people who are really in the front line offering support, whether it's technical and sometimes also financial, to entrepreneurs. And also the third stakeholder we work with is investors, and this is by creating a better system for them to be able to identify investable pipeline. And so in a nutshell, we design, test, and scale solutions for each of this to drive system change in the system. And so what we'll be talking today is the NextGen Ecosystem Builders Program. And this was a management training program for the next generation of talent within entrepreneur support organizations in Africa. And we ran this program in 2020, and it was in 2 languages, that's English and French. And it was also fully virtual. So in the next hour or so, we'll be sharing about our learnings from this program. And as some of you may know, the entrepreneur support industry is thriving in Africa, but deal flow still remains stubbornly low, especially for early stage companies. And at Village Capital, as I mentioned, we believe in empowering and strengthening ESOs, so that, as we believe that the key to unlocking pipeline and driving investments across the continent. And so for this program, we had two cohorts. Also, something else that some of you might know is that ESOs on the continent are often working in silos. And so we brought together 23 ESOs for them to learn from each other and also share best case practices with each other. And so from the English cohort, we had ESOs such as Bongahaya from Zambia and Idea from Mozambique, who you'll get to hear from in just a bit. And for the Francophone cohort, we had ESOs such as Energy Generation from Togo, whom you'll also get to hear from in a bit. We co-implemented the NextGen program with the African Management Institute, or AMI. And AMI enables ambitious businesses across the continent to thrive through practical tools and also training them with tools to build their businesses and also their teams. And AMI's methodology is slightly different from traditional training. They just don't offer workshops, and send you your way. Instead, the programs combine an element of online, which is like mobile tools, and also they offer in-person trainings. But now with COVID, that was virtual, and we'll get to hear a little bit about how that went. The program was made possible by the generous support of the Dutch Good Growth Fund. And we have Julia on the call, who will also tell us a little bit about what the Dutch Good Growth Fund does to support ESOs in Africa, and also her thoughts on the mid-level talent when it comes to ESOs in Africa. So in this session, as I mentioned, we'll discuss, we'll get to discuss what's working in the ESO sector, and we'll get to hear straight from the people who are working with entrepreneurs every day. So these are the people who recruit entrepreneurs, they're the ones who do direct training and give them advice. And we have a couple of them on the screen. We have Manuel from Idella, we have Lucy from Energy Generation, and we have Sekai from Bongo Hive. And so I'll stop sharing my screen and ask the panelists to please tell us your name, a little bit about the organization you represent, and how you ended up in the ESO sector. So we'll start with Camille, then Julia, Manuel, Lucy, Sekai in that order.
Thanks, Brenda. Hi, everyone. So I'm Camille. I'm Partnerships Manager at African Management Institute, AMI, and I was leading the NextGen program on AMI side. So as Brenda said, at AMI, we equip leaders, managers, entrepreneurs with the tools they need to succeed. And we do that by delivering blended and virtual learning programs. So we've done that since 2014, and we've already trained over 30,000 people across Africa in English, in French, in Arabic, and in Swahili. And during the NextGen program, we've delivered the management part of the program to the 47 managers to help them develop new habits and thrive in their organization. So the reason why I joined the sector and I'm still working in this sector is because I think why I joined AMI in the first place, and why I particularly enjoy working on NextGen program is because at AMI we want to support businesses to thrive and help them having a positive impact on their ecosystem by creating decent jobs, and we do that by supporting businesses directly and supporting also ESOs, because we think that if ESOs are thriving themselves, then they will succeed and they will support their entrepreneurs better and help this entrepreneur they create more decent jobs. So yeah, that would be for me. Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you, Camille, and thank you for joining us. Next, we'll have Julia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Julia Ko. I actually work for Triple Jump, which is a responsible investment manager. One of the funds we have under management is the Dutch Good Growth Fund. Basically, it's actually a very unique fund because there is only one investor, and it's the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. And they basically entitled us to manage properly big fund of funds, so through which we invest into the local finance service providers that then invest or lend to local SMEs. We can do that in 70 countries across the more developing and emerging markets. Another thing that is very unique about this fund of fund is that it has a facility attached to it. That's where I sit. We do quite a few different things. One is that we do seed capital investment, so we really back up, the first generation of new financiers. The second one is that we can provide technical assistance to our investees. The third one is that we believe that if we think that we're helping, a new generation of finance providers in these markets, we should actually learn whether it works or not, whether the products are well suited for which type of companies. We have a very big knowledge agenda. And the fourth one actually wasn't part of DGGF at the beginning, but it's the support to ESOs. What we have identified is that in some countries, our investment opportunities were limited, and it's not for lack of smart entrepreneurs, but it's definitely for a lack of interest from the investors. They wouldn't necessarily see all the entrepreneurs that there were. And we saw then a need for us to support entrepreneur support organizations to build more professional, maybe more sophisticated enterprises. And in all this work, one thing was coming back was the capacity of the team actually running these ESOs. And so we basically came to a partnership with Vilcap and AMI. And so we have been supporting this program. And very happy to share about the outcomes and perspectives on this panel.
Thank you so much, Julia. Happy to have you here. We'll hear from Manuel next.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Great to see you guys. Thank you for the invite, Brenda. So my name is Manuel. I'm representing Idea Lab. We are a SEO for profit based in Maputo, Mozambique, and we're turning 11 years this year. I joined Idea Lab 4 years ago because I met people that share this passion of impacting lives through businesses. And I fell in love instantly with that. Our offer is based on supporting the entrepreneur over the entrepreneurial journey from ideation to acceleration, as well as some consultancy and innovation projects as well. We started with the Mozambican ecosystem right where it started. I mean, we kicked off the Mozambican ecosystem, and it's been a very interesting journey over the last 10, 11 years to grow with it. So we've facilitated, we act as this ecosystem catalyst to make sure that all the stakeholders and all the players work together so that the ecosystem develops as a whole in a collaborative way. Recently, we are expanding to Angola, Luanda, where we are running also a few programs and projects there. So it's been a very interesting journey. Thank you, Brenda.
Awesome. Thank you, Manuel. And we are happy to have you here. So Idea Lab was the only participant that we had from Lusophone Africa, which is the Portuguese-speaking region of Africa. So we're happy to have you, Manuel. And next we'll hear from Lucy.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you very much to Village Capital and IMI for organizing this panel. So my name is Lucy. I have several experience in the entrepreneurship sector, in a startup, in a foundation, and now in an incubator. And during this experience, I discovered real social businesses with concrete impact that convinced me that the economy can be used to build a better and more equal society. When I discovered energy generation, I immediately loved its missions and values. And I'm now in charge of the entrepreneurship programs since 1 year now. So Energy Generation is a Pan-African organization that supports young Africans in addressing their generation's most pressing challenge in the energy, agribusiness, and healthcare field through entrepreneurship and technology. So what makes me stay is the philosophy of the structure, and of course, because I feel useful to the entrepreneur, but also to the structure, because I'm participating in making it grow and structuring.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Lucy. And last but definitely not the least, we have Sekai.
Thank you, Brenda. I'm glad to be here. So my name is Sekai Funda, and I am Innovation Lead at Bongo Hive. Bongo Hive is Zambia's first and leading technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship hub. We've been in existence for around 10 years, so 10 years in May. And over the years, we've supported more than 1,500 entrepreneurs and helped these entrepreneurs raise over $1 million in funding. And I joined Bongo Hive from within the ecosystem, as it were. I participated in one of their programs for growth stage businesses and was quite fascinated at their ability to provide this sort of catalytic support to my business and others. And I was at a point with my business where I was wanting to learn how we create more value. And I thought, where better than Bongo Hive to do that in supporting businesses to grow. And I continue to stay on because being within entrepreneur support organization allows you to sort of sit behind the curtain and see what's happening at several levels. And I believe there's still an opportunity to create even more value. So whether that is with at pre-accelerator stage all the way to corporate innovation, which is where I work predominantly. So that's why I joined the ESO space.
Awesome, thank you, Sekai, and also happy to have you here. So before we dive into the importance of mid-level management when it comes to the impact economy in Africa, I'd like to get an idea of who is in the room. So I'll ask the tech team to please launch the poll. Also let us know if you're an investor, entrepreneur support organization, government entity, academia, corporation. Okay, we'll give anyone who has not voted 15 more seconds. All right, thank you. Could you please end the poll and share the results? Oh, thank you. I hope you're all able to see the results. I see we have quite a high number of entrepreneur support organizations. We have a couple of people from civil society and NGOs, we have a couple of entrepreneurs and investors. Okay, cool. Pretty good mix of people that we have there. Cool, let me just close that. Awesome. So to get us started today, I'd like us to go back to 2020. At such a time, we had just come from the SANCALP, the SANCALP Africa Forum in Nairobi, which went on amazing. And then 2 weeks later, the world shut down and COVID struck, and a lot of people were affected. And some of the people also affected were our ESOs. And so for us at Village Capital, the NextGen program was our first program. We initially planned for it to be a hybrid program that would have elements of in-person and virtual. But now with COVID, we went fully virtual. And so I'd like us to talk about how COVID affected some of the ESOs in Africa. And I'd like to start with Manuel. So Manuel, could you tell us what was the COVID story for you at Idea Lab?
Of course, Brenda. Wow, it's crazy. It's been a year. It's March. It was this time around last year that we were all guessing what was coming. So for us, it's been like probably for all of us, a very interesting year. For our organization, the immediate impact that COVID had was making us stronger as a team. It strengthened our relationships as a team, but also with our partners and clients. And I saw this at Idea Lab, and I saw this on a personal level as well. I think COVID made us consider who we have around us, right? And it certainly validated the investment that we put into building a valuable relationships around our organization. Over the years, we invested a lot in building a very strong culture where the person is at the center. In 2019, we won a prize here in Mozambique for the 100 best SMEs. We won the best organizational environment to work. And last year, during this crazy COVID era, we won the OD Network Award for Organization Excellence and Impact. This felt really, how can I say? It was very satisfying to, during the COVID era, we winning this prize and living and feeling how it is to support each member. So although we were away working remotely, we were closer than ever. So it validated a lot of the work that we were putting into, for instance, also IT, using a lot of the cloud, using instant communication channels such as Slack. So this, we didn't know COVID was coming. So when we had to work remotely, we didn't even know, but we were halfway ready. So it was very interesting. And I think the team is way more tight than ever. Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. Yeah, and if you're able to, please switch on your video. We'd like to see you as you speak. So thank you for sharing that experience that you had at Idea Lab. So I'd like to pose the same question to Lucy. How was the experience for you at Energy Generation? Like, how did COVID affect your organization and more so your programming?
Thank you, Brenda. First of all, I would like to say that I was very fortunate to participate to the NextGen program last year. It was a very rich program. I was very concerned about the online format, but the setting was very perfect for the exchange in confidence with the other incubator. So well done to all the team. The beginning of the crisis was quite difficult for us. the training center and incubator closed in Lomé in Togo. So we had to put all our programs online. And this was very challenging, especially because many of our entrepreneurs do not have access to the internet easily. Finally, everything was put into place, and we all showed a great deal of resilience. But and I have to say that this experience accelerates our project of an online support platform. Another aspect that was difficult to manage was that some of the funding that energy generation have to receive were put on hold. So yes, we support entrepreneurs, but we are also in the position of entrepreneurs. So we are always trying new approach, and we need to be very reactive. So we had to be creative during the COVID-19 period in order to reduce our expense and manage the risk. So for example, we have managed to mobilize very high level speakers for our incubation session on a pro bono basis.
Awesome, thank you, Lucy. So to just build up on that, Sakai, so Bongo Hive has been in existence. This will be the 10th year. So, and most of your programming has been in person. How was your pivot to virtual programming, and what is the plan going forward?
I think to start, COVID definitely tested us in as far as agility is concerned, right? This is something that we've been saying over the past 10 years. We need to be agile and speaking to entrepreneurs about this. And so I think COVID definitely presented an opportunity for us to be agile. I have to commend our team internally for being quite responsive. First on a team level, going full remote and managing that process, but also being attentive to the needs of the entrepreneurs within our ecosystem, right? So I think the two main things that we did in terms of how we shifted to virtual programming is based off of two things, and that would be insights and iteration. In terms of insights, one of the first things that we did was to understand the extent of the challenge that entrepreneurs were facing, whether they had participated in our programs or not. What challenges were they facing? What were they anticipating? How much runway did they have in as far as sort of funding and so on? And that then helped us to say, okay, how then do we support them during this time? So for example, sessions on rebuilding income. And so also then learning in terms of best practice across the world and especially on the continent, what were other ESOs doing, what were companies doing to manage their programming services and so on online. In terms of iteration, we've gone through 3 phases. So at the moment we're going through our 3rd iteration of our programming. So one of the first things we did was have a set time and condense our programming. And we found that because of, say, power outages, schedules, and clashes like that, we got quite a bit of feedback in terms of flexibility of our programming as we're delivering it online. And so the 2nd iteration was, okay, so we'll sort of unpack all of the information that we were giving, the programming that we had, but all of it will be recorded. So then people could do it at their own time, at their own pace, and navigate, say, power outages and things like that. And then we got more feedback and now are doing a blended approach in this iteration. So we have some live sessions online, and then we also have sessions that are being done that are, you know, recorded. And we foresee that this will be the approach going forward, but obviously basing it on the 2 things I started by saying, which is the insights and iteration. So constantly speaking to the entrepreneurs that we support, the corporates that we support, and iterating as we go. I think that COVID is really encouraging us to be more responsive as we deliver our programs.
Amazing. I know AMI is also doing amazing things when it comes to virtual programming, and you supported over 50 ESOs during the COVID pandemic to pivot their programming to virtual. So I'd like to pose this question to Camille. What are the things you would say make virtual programs successful?
Sure. So AMI has been mostly running blended learning programs for years now, and so programs combining virtual and face-to-face elements within the same program. And we've done that because we believe that blended learning provides a powerful balance between flexibility and accountability, and like bringing people together. That's also the opportunity for them to practice skills through experiential activities, etc. So while we did experiment with fully virtual programs before COVID, that was not really the norm at AMI, and we also had to adapt when COVID arrived, and we had to redesign our programs to be able to still deliver fully virtual programs at a time where businesses needed help, like probably more than ever. And so when we're designing our programs, one approach could have been to simply try and like mirror what happens in face-to-face workshops and do the same thing online. But we thought that was not the same approach, the best approach, because sometimes some exercises may be trickier to run in virtual groups, for instance, or the discussion may be a bit more difficult. So you need to moderate it a bit more actively. So we've now moved all our programs to virtual, and actually we're very surprised that it's working very well. And we've identified some core design requirements for that that are essential to the success of this virtual program, and that are essential to really drive behavioral change during the program. Because as I said, what we really want is for the participants to develop new habits and keep these habits at the end of the program. So maybe I won't go into much details for each requirement. I'm just going to tell you very quickly. But we've done a report on that and on all that we've learned during the past year. So I can share the link if someone is interested. So the first design requirement is the structure. We know that self-paced online courses have very low completion rates, because even if the content is very good, even if the content is excellent, you need to put structure in your learning journey. So that's a key element, and you really need to take into account the time constraints of the participant, the accountability, the incentives that they may need, etc. The second core design requirement is the engagement. In all our program, and Lucy, Sekei, and Manuel, you've seen that, we have a program manager. The program manager is like the human face of the program, even if the program is 100% virtual. And the role of this person is to support the participant throughout the program, to hold the program together, to trigger group discussions, remind the participants of deadlines, to share relevant content, etc. And we've identified that this role is very important. The third thing would be the accountability and the community. So within our programs, we have different roles. We have the buddy. So for each online course, the participants are encouraged to choose a buddy, and that's a person with whom they're going to share their assignments, for instance, and someone who is able to give a constructive feedback. We also have a lot of peer-to-peer interactions, being during the virtual workshops or during pod meetings, etc., that we do for the entrepreneurs. And finally, the last thing is the personalization. So we know that senior leaders, entrepreneurs, they're really time constrained, and learning is only interesting for them if they can apply immediately what they've learned in their business. So that's why we give them very practical tools that they can use every day and even when the program is over. So just to conclude very quickly, we've seen that the flexibility that virtual programs offer is actually, we had very good feedback from the participants on that. And what's interesting, that we had also very good feedback from women, especially who said that they could more easily manage their personal and professional life thanks to this flexibility. So I think we're doing more and more virtual programs, and we see that there is a good chance that we don't have to sacrifice the impact, and we can still run programs at scale. So that's very good news.
Awesome. Thank you, Kabil, for sharing those amazing insights. As we go on with the conversation, if you'd like to comment on what the speakers have said, feel free to use the chat box. If you have any questions, feel free to also post them, and we'll see if we can incorporate them into the conversation, or we'll answer them at the dedicated time for Q&A at the end. So right now, I'd like to pull Julia back into the conversation. So DGGF has funded a couple of ESOs in Africa, and we've seen a couple of them adapt to virtual programming. Could you share with us if there are any other ways that they adapted their programming, and just what are the innovative ways that you've seen ESOs in your portfolio change their programming to better support entrepreneurs through the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that going virtual for some of them was actually the innovation. I mean, it based on two different things. I think was mentioned already, sometimes internet access is not necessarily easy. It's also that not all ESOs are supporting, internet-enabled companies. We're speaking about agribusiness companies, for instance. Sometimes they are not based in cities, so to get access to internet was an issue. So the ability to go virtual was definitely the biggest innovation. We have a very diverse, although small portfolio. Some discovered Zoom, others, ran like investor summits with hundreds of people all online. But I think that if there's one thing that we saw across the board was the capacity of ESOs to go the extra mile to keep on serving their entrepreneurs. I'm thinking of ESOs who, built internet tokens for some of their entrepreneurs to be able to actually have access to internet. Some ESOs downloading some of the tools we have through the programs we did with VILCAP and AMI, just downloading and printing Excel spreadsheets for the entrepreneurs to still be able to do their cash flow planning and their scenario analysis. And we've also seen that ESOs were particularly mindful about their costs. So if they had to cut costs somewhere, the first thing was the rent, which is usually a big driver of cost, because usually you have the space that is also the one that would bring you basically most of your revenues. But when everything is in lockdown, then you don't need it. We've also seen managers taking very big salary cuts, like not even getting salaries for 3 months, just to make sure they kept their team, just to make sure that they could still support their entrepreneurs. So I wouldn't say like crazy innovation in terms of going virtual, but going the extra mile to be able to have the team still operate and the entrepreneurs still served. Yes, a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia, for those insights. And during this COVID period, the people who are typically at the front line of supporting entrepreneurs are the mid-level managers, and the likes of Manuel, Lucy, or Sekai. And last year, when we surveyed mid-level managers for the NextGen program, and these were managers from 19 African countries, so they told us the top 3 technical skills they wanted to learn was 1, designing an impact evaluation framework, 2, assessing and engaging ecosystem stakeholders, and 3 was developing a strong value proposition for their programs. So I'd like to ask Lucy, so after spending time with your peers and connecting with them virtually, what technical skill would you say you were able to improve on, and how has this been important for your work at Energy Generation?
So I would say that the program and the peer exchange has been very beneficial, especially during the crisis. So it was an enriching space for sharing. So we were able to explore our problems, the problems we met in our organization, both with entrepreneurs, but also with the business model, and to realize that we were facing the same overall, the same problems. So it was very comforting, I would say. And in terms of skills, I would say that the program allowed me to gain self-confidence and to be even more methodical in building and managing our program. And I think that I could take a real leadership role in the managing of the program, because I know the process and I know the methodology to build a real good program. So yeah, that's very helpful.
Amazing. I'm super happy to hear that, Lucy. And I know Astria is on the call, who's the founder and CEO at Energy Generation. So Astria, there's your successor over there. So now I'd like to loop on Manuel to the conversation. So we asked the same mid-level managers the management skills that they wanted to learn. And so what they told us is one was coming up with new and innovating solutions to problems, two, effectively solving problems by dealing with the root cause, and three, developing and following a clear action plan to achieve their goals. And so I'd pose the same question to you, Manuel. What did you learn from your peers when it comes to, your management skills, and how are you implementing it at Idea Lab?
Yeah, first of all, Brenda, the course that you guys put together was amazing because it was the first time that I felt like somebody thought about me, actually, well, my day-to-day, and it felt really good. The group was stellar. I mean, in the first place, it's amazing to be with peers that you're usually not with, right? And having productive conversations. Second of all, is seeing so much talent across all the countries in this continent. So they were very inspirational. I could learn a lot about communication skills, how to influence others. We had so many beautiful pitches, how to delegate, how to give feedback. It's these small things that I was challenged to bring into my work environment. And it matched very well with the courses that we had about how are you going to grow as a leader? What's your leader profile? And all this fitted very well together. So I don't know who's here that was part of the course besides Sekai, but a big shout out to them as well.
Awesome. We did not pay Manuel to say that. That was by his own accord. But as there's no MBA to really the work that we do, and it's just what we do is the work of fearless influencers. And we're just happy to see what is able to happen across the continent when we bring peers who are doing the same thing. And so Sekai, you're a manager yourself who's now leading the innovation practices Bongo Hive. What skills are you looking for now in your team? And how do you make your team the ones to win and deliver excellence to entrepreneurs in Zambia?
I think in terms of, I'll start before the skills. I think something that may not be sort of a hard skill, but more soft skill is probably curiosity. I think that's the starting point, is in a team that may not know all of the lean methodology to start with, but they're curious about how that is done. Why is that something we are using? And in assembling a team internally, that's often what I'm looking for. We are working predominantly asynchronously at the moment, and so looking for individuals that can communicate. So from the very big things to the small things like I'm stepping away from my desk, that ability to communicate. And I think on top of that, it would be problem solving. This is something we talk about quite a bit in our programming, but I think it's fundamental to delivering support to entrepreneurs, is the ability to see a problem at a systemic level, for example, and say, this is where the challenge is, and to think outside the box in terms of what solutions look like. So that's usually what I'm looking for. And individuals that want to lead. So we are a fairly flat organization, and this is something that was exciting to me when I joined Bongo Hive, for example, is just because you come in and you're a direct report, it doesn't mean that you cannot share what your ideas are. And so individuals that are looking to lead, individuals that are looking to share their ideas would be traits and skills that I'd be looking for in my team. In terms of providing them support, I must mention that one of the modules that we had during the NextGen program, enabling people to perform, I found life-changing, because in managing people and moving into more and more managerial positions, figuring out how do I take somebody that is talented and enable them to perform using their strengths, right? So things like providing opportunities for them to lead and to share their ideas, increasing competence in terms of, so for example, coming together and all learning about HCD or human-centered design, and building confidence, so providing opportunities for them to talk about the things that they've learned and make presentations to the team. So these would be the three things that I think I got out of the NextGen program that I'm using to enable the team to perform.
My internet has picked up. So I'd like to look on Julia's conversation. Digital is a funder, and you're looking to deploy capital into this. You always are, looking at having a low risk. So when you're assessing the organizations to fund, what role does the team play in this perceived risk?
Okay, yeah, maybe just one tiny little adjustment is that we know we won't find low risk. We're okay with the risk, but definitely the team is the number one aspect that we look at to see if we can basically handle the risk. As I explained how DGF is structured, it's actually an investment fund. So it goes, it's an investor lens we have. And although we support ESOs through grant funding, we keep still our investor hat, and an investor before investing would always look at the first thing is the team. So that's also what we are looking for. I think that what we look at and what we want to find in the team first is entrepreneurial DNA. We want to see at least one person who is at least entrepreneurial, not to say actually has entrepreneurial experience, because otherwise how are they going to relate to what the entrepreneurs are going through? But we also understand that, it's a team. We wouldn't go for an organization that has only one person. It's often ESO teams are really small because it's just hard to have enough to have a full team, and often also you start small. But I think what is important is, even if it's small, we need to see in the team, one is professionalism. I mean, we like to work with people who are very professional because they work in very difficult environments. What they are trying to do is extremely difficult. So you want to be able to have people who are professional, think about things, present them in a professional way, and that you can basically work through all the issues that are going to happen in a professional way. Commitment is extremely important. I think that sometimes we see quite a bit of turnaround in some of our organizations, and that's not always a great sign. We understand that people want to move and all of that, but if people can retain their staff, then we see definitely as something extremely positive. And then it seems like basics, but we'd like to see a team that has just been built, with clear roles and responsibilities for the people. That is also based on their experience, their skill set, and because you need to make sure that you have everyone knows what they have to do basically to make the whole thing kind of progress in the right direction. And I think that not just to speak about the mid-level managers, but there are also some roles that are often not seen as being very important in an organization like an ESO, which actually I think it is. I wouldn't underestimate having some kind of a community manager, making sure that you stay in touch. Yes, with the entrepreneurs you work with at the moment, but that you build your pipeline for the next ones, and that you also engage with the alumni. They are your best ambassadors and your best resources. The other thing is also maybe a lot of focus on, anything that is like kind of communication, marketing, PR. I mean, if you want to attract the best people, the best resources, you really need to not underestimate that. And then last but not least, is it's great to have a fantastic head of the organization. Yeah, it is needed. It's the face of the organization, everything. developer, you need a rockstar business developer. You need a rockstar person who really understands and can work with the entrepreneurs on a day-to-day basis. So yes, it's very important for us, the team.
Thanks, Julia. And I think Brenda had some internet issues, so I can take over from here. Hopefully she'll come back. But thanks, Julia. And indeed, when you said that you're investing in a team, I think that's so something that we often see when at AMI, and like that's also why we support middle managers, because we really think they're the backbone of the company, and that by helping them taking more ownership, delegate better, communicate better with their team or with their management also, they can really help and enable their company to thrive better. And I think with the NextGen program, we've seen that ESOs do not lack talents at all, but that sometimes a middle manager needs some practical tools to perform better. So I hope this program help you with that, Lucy, Manuel, and Sekai. Maybe the last question before we open to the room would be for Sekai, Manuel, and Lucy. There are a few grant makers in the room today. What would you say to them if the biggest need you've seen for creating a more investable pipeline and the role local ESO could play? What would you say is the biggest need you've seen? Well, who wants to start? Sekai, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think one of the biggest needs that we've seen is definitely resources at an early stage, right? The resources you need to test an innovative idea, to prototype, and where we come in as ESOs is sort of providing that support, the capacity building support to validate your idea. Where we see the biggest challenge is moving from that stage, right, to testing your idea. So the resources that are needed to validate this idea, to build a prototype and test it in the market. So there's several needs, but I would say that would be one of the biggest needs in building an investable pipeline with entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Lucy, what would you say?
Yes, I'm totally agree on what Sekai said. So at Energy Generation, we are often approached by investment funds interested in investing in African startups in this or that field. And it's very frustrating because, in fact, there is very few startups ready to investment, at least in West Africa. So I think it's important to take this reality into account. And there are lots of very early stage projects, so we need to structure seed funds with due diligence more comprehensive and offer smaller amounts. And I think that investor needs to be true partners and show more empathy. But I would like also to talk about the financing of ESO. So funders are very often offer funds to develop new programs or new projects that meet their own agendas. And it's quite funny because the same was true when I was working in Europe in a foundation. We were one on the very few foundations that supports social enterprise structurally. So I mean, money for their operating costs, money for their salary, and not for this or that project. So if I had to address donor, I would say trust the structure you want to fund, and offer them the possibility to develop their own idea, their own programs, because they are the expert and they are in the field. But for that, they need working capital and they need competent team, and it includes fair working condition also.
Thank you, Lucy. Do you agree, Manuel? What do you want to add?
Yes. Just to build what you lady said, I see this, to build a pipeline, I see that we need to support these entrepreneurs along their journey. And that means having specific products, programs, trainings, advisories that can be tailored to that entrepreneur at that moment. What happens is the SEOs, the team is very small, so everybody's doing everything. We need to develop specific skills inside these SEOs. It's not the ideation trainer, it's going to also be the advisor and be the accelerator trainer. We need to be more specific so that this support is more tailored to these entrepreneurs, and that we can, how can I say, go hand in hand with them along their journey. And in specific moments, we can give them specific support. But for that, we need to develop these skills inside these organizations like ours, and invest in mid-level managers, on top-level managers, on new recruitment, on maintaining these people inside the organization, because it pays to take care of your people. It pays to put your people first. There's no doubt around that. So that's what we need to do more. That's my opinion, Camille. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuel. I think Brenda is back. Brenda, can you hear us?
Yes, I am back.
Okay, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Camille, for having me. So I'd like to end the general discussion with the panel by asking them, what are your thoughts on the future of the ESO sector in Africa? Looking into the future, AMI has been in existence 7 years. We have Idea Lab and Bongo Hive 10 years. So what do you think the future holds? Who would like to go first? Let me see. Lucy, do you want to go first?
Excuse me, I'm not sure to understand the question.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on the future of the ESO sector in Africa?
I think they need to be, as we said during all this discussion, that the ESO needs more support from funders, but also from governments. We also need, I think the main point is we need to have a government that support us with law, with mechanism, with funding mechanism for the entrepreneur, because we can be there to support them and to find to help them to find a market, to find the funding. But we really need to have also the ecosystem to be ready for them to develop their structure.
Yeah, I 1000% agree with that. Sekai, what are your thoughts on the future?
Brenda, I believe the ESOs will continue to play an integral role within the ecosystem as sandboxes, as capacity builders, and as we build on existing pipelines as connectors. I think that, as Manuel was mentioning just before, that there will be, though, a need to pay more particular attention to the more specific supports that we provide and building our capacity internally as support organizations, right? So I think that we'll continue to provide the sort of catalytic support that we do, but there'll definitely be a need to refine the offering and the support that we give. So that's what the future looks like from my perspective.
Awesome, thank you, Sekai. Manuel, what does the future look like for you?
Very promising, I must say, Brenda, because I'm a preacher for entrepreneurship, okay? And I don't see SEOs only doing capacity building, only, from my point of view, we are preaching a mindset of, if you're not happy with something, do it, change it. To have action, to have a lead, to be an agent of change. So to tackle problems. So our role, I see, is each year that passes, it's more predominant. We can use our methodologies to help governments, corporates, not only startups. So I see our role and the work that we do cascading down to many other areas of our countries, of our continent, of the economy as a whole. So I think the future is very promising for us.
Awesome. So from a promising future, Camille, what do you think the future has in store?
Yeah, I like this this optimism. I think that's great, and I agree. And I think, like as you mentioned before, the ESOs are essential within the ecosystem, and they can really drive transformation by supporting businesses. And what I would say, I think, is that we've seen that with the COVID crisis, the ESOs had to, I mean, everybody, but also the ESOs had to adapt very quickly, maybe to start offering virtual support to the businesses, learn how to use new tools. And I think you all mentioned that also before. And so first, I think that by adopting a blended learning approach or virtual approach, they'll be able to support entrepreneurs at scale. And the other thing I would say is that we don't really know what's going to happen next. I think we're all surprised by the past year, and we don't know what's going to happen next. And so maybe what this past year has shown us is that we need to be able to adapt, and that we need to equip the organizations and the teams with the skills that they will need to adapt. So that can be problem-solving skills, leading crises, leading change, etc. That are very, very important skills, and will enable us anyway to continue, adapt, pivot to anything that can happen to us. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Kumi. So last but definitely not least, Julia, what are your thoughts looking into the future?
Yeah, so I don't know if I know about the future, but maybe I have a hope. I think I couldn't agree more with what everyone has said. I think what I hope is that there, and some people have already mentioned a bit more like specificity. My hope is first and foremost that, you know, ESOs, and maybe also if, you know, the people who support ESOs, you know, would let them do exactly what they want to do, that they have the capacity to really, you know, target what type of enterprises are they targeting in terms of, you know, their growth aspirations. Very often, you know, we are sold that, you know, we are supporting the ESOs that will, you know, be the next Google. Let's face it, it's not true. There are not thousands of Googles in the world, and it's fine. Most of the companies are, you know, what we call moderate growth companies. It means that they don't have the hockey stick growth, but there is growth. And there is growth because they develop services and products that are relevant also for the needs of the local customer base or even the international local base. But we really need to be very clear about first what type of companies we're speaking about, and also where they are with their development path. To the points also that were made before, maybe you can, you know, have an idea, structure it, yes, but then it's about testing and validating it. And also sometimes you need to just support the enterprises that are maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit more established, but they really need to make this big jump. So I wish there would be more specificities around that, around also the service offering, and that then on this basis, you can really tailor the business model so that you can find ways to monetize the core service offering of these ESOs, and that they can monetize them also towards their number one target clients, the entrepreneurs. I think another things that then I think is linked to that basically is that to a point that was made before, I wish that for organizations like the one I work for, we really think into empowering these organizations in doing what they are supposed to do, that we help them basically build the team that they need to actually execute on what they need, instead of coming and saying, can you accelerate for me 10 companies in the health sector this year? And then that's it. That doesn't build resilient, that doesn't build sustainable organizations. So my really hope for the future is how this whole ecosystem can basically build more sustainable organizations that will be more sustainable businesses and more sustainable economies.
I love that. You know, just thinking about sustainability. ESOs at the end of the day are businesses. So, you know, in as much as the more we continue to train SMEs, you know, SGBs, startups, whatever you want to call them, to be sustainable, we also need to think about our sustainability. So thank you, Julia, for those amazing points. And there's something you mentioned about specificity. And I see a question here to Manuel, and someone is asking, At the ESO level, there's a need for specific skill sets to enable ESOs to advise entrepreneurs across their journey. And from your experience, how are ESOs tackling this issue currently? For instance, how easy or hard is it for ESOs to partner with other ecosystem stakeholders to provide these very specific technical skills?
Yeah, thank you, Brenda. So from our experience, it is crucial to have a very clear value proposition that matches the identity of your ESO. That way is the most direct and easy way to find partners that match your values and match your vision. Specifically for technical skills, being a very hands-on sector, it's very important that the approach is very practical. Because these entrepreneurs, they love learning by doing. So what you bring to the table is just in a practical way, not teaching them, but transferring the skills to how to start or manage that type of business. Doing as like tools, the tools that they already work with, you're just bring management and business development tools that they can relate to at the same time.
Awesome, thank you, Manuel. Sekai, Lucy, how has the experience been for you when it comes to providing very specific advice or skills to entrepreneurs? Have you partnered with other organizations in the ecosystem to do this, or how have you handled it?
We definitely have, and I remember I was talking about collaboration and so on when in terms of the skills that you need, and I think that is fundamental to the work that we do, right? And we've been privileged to have mentors come on board, and with our more sector-specific programming, then have partners come on board that provide specific technical advice and so on. So they've started out by coming on board as coaches in a generic sense, and then in building that relationship with them, saying, we have this specific business within our program, and we know you are the head of investment, for example, as an individual. Would you like to provide some support to help them think through how they then build investment for their businesses? So I think it's handling relationships within the ecosystem. So, and speaking to them as individuals, to the technical advisors, for example, and that has helped us to keep that relationship going and expanding the kind of more specific support we provide to entrepreneurs.
Awesome, thank you, Sekai. Lucy, do you have anything to add?
Just say that we have a very specific focus on some thematics. So we have the skills in intern, and I would say that actually it's quite easy to make the link with the ecosystem and with the specialists, external specialists, because they are very often open to share their competencies when it's come to help our entrepreneurs.
Awesome, thank you, Lucy. So we use a similar approach at Village Capital, where if we are training entrepreneurs, we normally run sector-specific programs. So then we're able to attract the creme de la creme of mentors when it comes to that sector. So we definitely engage other people in the ecosystem who are experts in the sector. Oh, any other questions? Okay, cool. If there are no further questions, then I think we can conclude the session. Thank you so much for joining us. For me, I wish for a more collaborative and connected Africa ecosystem. And I know with the NextGen program, we just scratched the surface. So I hope to see more programs, more Pan-African programs that are targeting the ESOs, just deepening the work that ESOs do and not being, not distracting them from the core work that they do. So thank you very much for joining us. If you would like to hang on and ask more questions, I will stay on the call for 5 more minutes. But if not, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of Sankalp.